Hey, we wanted to talk, Debbie and I did, about this controversy that's sort of swirling around the newest holiday, federal holiday, which is Juneteenth. Now, for people who don't know, Juneteenth is a celebration of the end of slavery. I guess this is when slavery finally collapsed in the Confederacy. And the left has been pushing this as a holiday. What is your take on all this?
Well, like everything else, I think it's just another form of pandering and another form of dividing. As you know, I'm Hispanic, right? And we have a Hispanic Heritage Month, which weirdly starts September 15th and goes through October 15th. So that's not really a month. That's like half a month here and half a month there. But anyway, all that to say, it's ridiculous. I think that if you are Hispanic, celebrate your heritage all year. You don't need a month.
Yeah, let me spell out. This is what I think is the political agenda behind it. Because by itself, I have no objection to Juneteenth. I obviously celebrate the end of slavery and the collapse of the Confederacy. In fact, very important to point out that the Confederacy was supported by the Democratic Party initially in the North and the South. And throughout the war, even the Northern Democrats were trying to do what they could to undermine Lincoln. I think the political agenda here is this. They don't want us to celebrate July 4th because July 4th celebrates the founders. So they're trying to take July 4th and replace it to some degree with this idea of Juneteenth. And I think this is kind of why Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens have gotten a little bit of flack. The left is like, what are you against the end of slavery? But they're onto something because what they've noticed is that this is a displacement strategy by the left. So the political context is what's so revealing. Basically, Charlie and Candace are saying, we're still going to celebrate July 4th. Now, I think what's interesting about this is, and I'd like to know your take on it, is July 4th is what made possible Juneteenth. And here's what I mean. Abraham Lincoln said that the founders declared our rights, all men are created equal, so that the enforcement could follow when the circumstances permitted. So it was really, Juneteenth was a realization of the principle of the Declaration of Independence. So the left wants to use Juneteenth against the founding, even though it's the founding that made possible Juneteenth. That's the distortion I think that they're pushing, and that's the thing that we should resist.
Right. So would you be okay with them not resisting July 4th, but adding this new holiday as well?
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. Now, Joe Biden, interestingly, in announcing Juneteenth, he said this. He goes, a great country comes to terms with the painful aspects of its history. Now, I don't disagree, but here's the one thing that's missing in the entire Juneteenth controversy. There's no mention of the Democratic Party. In other words, the Democratic Party was the anchor of slavery. There wasn't even that much slavery in the founding compared to what you got in the 19th century. The massive plantation system in the South was sustained by one political party and opposed by the other political party. So the fact that the Democrats not only promoted and sustained slavery, but even after the Civil War, they opposed the 13th Amendment, freeing the slaves. They opposed the 14th Amendment. So if you could get some honesty, notice that all the progressives who never mentioned the word Democrat in this context, they belong to the Democratic Party. So they're hiding their own party's complicity. If you want to be honest and embrace the painful aspects of your history, the Democratic Party needs to say that as a party, we did this. We apologize for it. We take responsibility for it. If there are any reparations to pay, we will pay them. But good luck waiting for that. Luck waiting for that to happen.
We've often said it's like the firefighter setting the fire and then coming back and ousting it, right? This is how they behave. If they cause the problem and then they act like the savior that is trying to solve that problem.
See, if progressives admitted the Democrats did this, they would have to explain, why are you now in a party that has this ugly history? And by the way, it's not just, quote, history. The same Democrats are in charge of the inner cities. They are responsible for the breakdown of the black family. They're responsible for these violent upsurges of crime that are made possible by their policies. They're responsible for the terrible public schools. So the burden falls on them. And I think that the whole game that they play with critical race theory is to shift blame around. They want some 4-year-old white kid who's coming into kindergarten. They want to blame that that kid instead of blaming themselves and their party and their own ugly history. Talk about evading responsibility.
Yeah, well, you know, they're doing it to divide. Honey, I've often mentioned this with Hugo Chavez and what he did in Venezuela and how he declared Christopher Columbus Day null and void. And instead, he made it Indigenous Day. Why? Because he wants to create division. This is the only way that these leftist socialist people retain power. Why? Because they pit one group of people against another. So this is no surprise to me that the left and the Democrats are doing it here in America.
So, and to sum up, I think what we'd have to say is that there's nothing wrong in and of itself with Juneteenth. We're for Juneteenth. But when you look at the context and you look at the underlying political agenda, you have to realize that it's part of a propaganda campaign, not to inform, not to have honest debate, not to take responsibility, but to propagandize and to lie to young people.
And divide.
And divide.